In the movie Memento, the idea of memory is presented in a simple yet complicated manner. We follow Leonard, a former insurance agent that seeks out the killer of his wife in an act of revenge. The only twist? He suffers from short-term memory loss. The result is a highly emotional, highly manipulable man that wakes up each morning with the same rage as the morning after his wife was raped. However, things begin to unravel as we learn that his state is being used by others for their advantage. Even more confusingly, other aspects of the movie exist that question the validity of Leonard's condition. Why does our protagonist remember some things that occurred after his accident? Why does he forget certain things after a few hours, yet other things after a full day?
Okay, so what am I doing?
Why does an ordinary insurance agent have the calculated, cool persona of a hitman? While Leonard seems to struggle with his condition constantly, we argue that he has somewhat recovered from the accident physically, yet mentally refuses to remember in an act of selfish purpose. By watching this video, we hope that the reader will understand the power of the human mind and its desire for a purpose and, in turn, happiness.
Our first clue is the story of Sammy Jenkins. The final scene at the end of the movie, featuring Sammy Jenkins staring into space in a care facility, serves as proof that though Sammy Jenkins may have suffered from anterograde amnesia, similarly to Leonard, it is actually Leonard's own story that he keeps repeating over and over. For a split second, right before a person is shown walking into the frame and blocking the camera's field of vision, we see Leonard and not Sammy in the chair, proving that Leonard and not Sammy murdered his wife by injecting her with too much insulin. It is also questionable how Sammy's story is one thing Leonard does not seem to forget, no matter how long it has been.
Why would I tell him about fucking Sammy?
You tell everybody about Sammy. Everybody will listen.
When repeating the story of Sammy Jenkins, Leonard insists that he only said that Sammy's condition is not physiological, it is psychological. Leonard's insistence and his ability to remember this long and complicated story while he forgets other information almost instantaneously seem to point to the fact that Leonard knows, deep down, what really happened. He is simply too ashamed to admit it. Leonard's immense grief, coupled with the enormous guilt of murdering his own wife, causes him to suppress certain parts of himself. According to George Briggs in the article Memory and Morals in Memento, Memento is also a larger commentary on morality. The article talks about the principles of David Hume, highlighting the importance of memory in human morality. Leonard insists he is trying to right the wrongs done to him and restore the moral order. But really, he is using his memory to warp the way he thinks about morality itself. By forgetting that it was none other than himself who murdered his wife, he allows himself to justify murdering man after man, to bury his guilt, and even feel joy at avenging his dead wife.
Our second clue is the I've Done It tattoo. In the ending scene when Leonard is driving to the tattoo parlor, he flashes back to a scene of him and his wife in bed with the tattoo saying, "I've done it." However, in the photograph where he kills his wife's murderer, there is a blank spot on his chest where the I've Done It tattoo now resides. He even tells Natalie that he is leaving that spot open until he finds his wife's killer. Now, this tattoo isn't present throughout the movie, which can say one of two things. For starters, Teddy could have helped kill the man who raped Leonard's wife, who Leonard believes is dead. He gets the tattoo, reunites with his wife, then their wife dies from the insulin overdose, and Leonard begins all the other killings. In the scene where Natalie first notices the tattoo, she points to the blank spot and asks, "What about this?" There are a bunch of empty spots on his chest, so why point to that spot specifically? Leonard then says that he's saving it for after, and Natalie shows a hint of confusion. Maybe she shrugs it off because she is aware that he is crazy and wants to uphold her innocent friend. And maybe we can't see the tattoo because Leonard conditioned himself to disregard it. Or this could have just been a daydream. But if this was just his imagination in the current moment, why did he vividly imagine all of his tattoos that symbolize his journey in avenging her, but not his current face scar that would not heal so flawlessly as in that scene? This would imply that the scene took place before the series of events in the movie. The final lines in the movie also support the previous point. In the ending scene of the film, Leonard says,
You think I just want another puzzle to solve? Another John G to look for? You're a John G. So you can be my John G.
Here, Leonard basically admits that he is going to frame Teddy. Instead of just writing that Teddy is the murderer, he makes note of his license plate and writes, "Don't believe his lies," to give himself clues. In this moment, we realize that he is choosing to be incognizant. He is giving his life meaning by seeking constant revenge. He also says,
Can I just let myself forget what you've told me?
The answer to this is yes. In this sense, it is so far-fetched to believe that he can forget and disregard a tattoo to continue the cycle of revenge. In the article Why Forget on the adaptive value of memory loss, they exclaim how memory inaccessibility does not necessarily imply memory unavailability. Now, if we deem Leonard's condition to be psychological, then the fact that memory is not recalled in one point in time does not mean that it will not eventually come back in the future. Finally, take a look at the first line of the movie compared to the final line.
So where are you? Now, where was I?
This supports the previous claim. The first line seems to be a genuine question because of his amnesia. However, in the second question, he is aware, for a moment, that he is keeping himself trapped in the murderous loop, and he is content with that. Referring back to the previous article, they state how people avoid or shallowly process self-threatening information because they strive for a positive self-concept. Does this sound familiar? It should, because this may be the case for Leonard. The need for revenge gives his life meaning, a purpose. And as Francis Bacon said, a man that studied revenge keeps his own wounds green. And as a result, Leonard is unable to psychologically recover from his trauma. Our final clue is a scene that points to Leonard's wife having diabetes.
This scene is a major turning point in our understanding of Leonard's condition, and is the time where we, as the audience, finally realize that Leonard's condition might be psychological after all. We see Leonard have two flashbacks. The first is when Teddy tells Leonard that his wife had diabetes, and not Sammy's wife. Leonard finally remembers injecting his wife with the insulin overdose. While Leonard initially resists this idea, further prompting causes him to remember the fake memory formulated in his own mind. Instead of injecting his wife with insulin and killing her, he was giving her a teasing pinch. This shows us that Leonard does have his memory, but his mind is sugarcoating the trauma, thereby allowing Leonard to live with himself and what he has done to the person he loves most in the world. This brings us to another question. Is the idea of sugarcoating traumatic memories a brainchild of Christopher Nolan, or can we find this idea in academic literature? We can find some answers in Why Forget on the adaptive value of memory loss, published in 2015 by Simon Norby of Aarhus University in the Perspectives on Psychological Science journal. To make his argument that forgetfulness is sometimes useful, he first presents a counterexample in the form of a woman named AJ. He says, what makes her extraordinary is her ability to remember an immense amount of autobiographical information without attempting to do so. He later goes on to detail how this extreme recollective ability is harmful for AJ. Whenever AJ recollects a personal memory, it cues the retrieval of another related memory in an unstoppable cascade, he says. This leads her to be frequently exhausted and almost crazed by the uncontrollable onslaught of traumatic memories. Norby then goes on to address forgetfulness directly, arguing that forgetting is not an all-or-nothing phenomenon, where one either forgets entirely or remembers entirely. Instead, Norby says, forgetting may occur with respect to some but not other parts of a certain memory. Recall how Leonard does indeed remember administering a pinch-like treatment to his wife, but blurs out what that pinch actually was. Norby says, when one later attempts to remember this partially forgotten memory, this retrieval can be strongly influenced by post-event information or gist-based rationalization. Here, Norby argues that humans manipulate bad memories later on so that they seem less traumatic. This, he argues, could be one way that humans deal with an uninformative or unacceptable past. Thus, our argument that Leonard's condition was psychological is indeed backed up in current literature addressing the topic.
All of these pieces of evidence point to support our idea. Leonard has the physical ability to remember, yet mentally blocks out in order to forget the killing of his wife. His memory has morphed into the story of Sammy Jenkins, which serves as proof he can form memories after the accident. The larger question to be posed is why and how he's able to forget memories. The primary goal of humans is to seek happiness, and, for Leonard, this is impossible while the memory of what he did to his wife lingers. After his memories of the traumatic events he endured returned, which just takes time according to one study, he was left with an impossible void of despair. But his desire to have purpose and happiness in his life has overpowered the standard memory process. He has created his own reality to achieve some purpose in life.